Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Australians, firstly I wish to honour and respect our Anzacs. I have my red ensign behind me, who sacrificed their lives for our freedoms. And I also wish to show my respect to the original people of this land. There is so much misinformation that is getting out there. This misinformation has got to stop. Somebody has sent me something from a lawyer, Samir Banga. So we've got him, and he has said that please anyone correct him if he is wrong. We've got Malcolm Roberts throwing out gross misinformation, and Professor David Flint. I just want to make it clear, I don't care for any of your opinions, your understanding, your views, or what you believe. You are all qualified in some area of law, or you are in Parliament. So why are you creating more despair and confusion for the people? Have we not suffering enough? All you are doing is giving people misinformation. Lies and deceit is what I call it. Things such as claiming the states have the right to do what they are doing. The simple answer to this is no, they do not. The question I want to ask in particular the lawyers and you, Malcolm Roberts, are you all in contract with the states? It would explain why you are providing misinformation contrary to the supreme law of this land, the Constitution of Australia, Constitution Act. And in my opinion, it would explain the deceit and concealment of the guarantees, protections and freedoms that the Constitution provides us that are indissoluble. In particular, at this point of time, Section 5123A is very pertinent. It prohibits medical services being forced or coerced onto anyone with High Court case law, Australian High Court of Australia case law, providing a second ring of steel around us to protect the people. But all of you are avoiding this most basic of protections that we are guaranteed. All of you seem to be incapable of quoting the Constitution. And what the text is, what it says is it's explicit in what it says. There can be no misinterpretation. Excuse me. So, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Australians, I'm not going to give people my opinion. I'm not going to give you my view, my understanding, or what I believe. And as God is my witness, I am going to quote directly from the Constitution. This is an overview. The Australian Constitution has properly been described as the birth certificate of a nation. It also provides the basic rules for the government of Australia. Indeed, the Constitution is the fundamental law of Australia, binding everybody, including the Commonwealth Parliament and the Parliament of each state. Accordingly, even an act passed by Parliament is invalid if it is contrary to the Constitution. What has been judicially described as the sovereignty of the Australian people is also recognised by Section 128, which provides that any change to the Constitution must be approved by the people of Australia via referendum for representative government. Another fundamental principle which underlies the Constitution is that of representative government, and that is government by representatives of the people who are chosen by the people. You seem to be choosing people for us. This has got to stop. Consistently with this principle, Sections 7 and 24 and 128 of the Constitution require regular elections for the House of Representatives and the Senate, and Section 7 and 24 require members of the Commonwealth Parliament to be directly chosen by the people. Clause 5 is the operation of the Constitution and laws. This Act and all laws made by the Parliament of the Commonwealth under the Constitution shall be binding on the courts, judges and people of every state and every part of the Commonwealth, notwithstanding anything in the laws of the state and the laws of the Commonwealth. I'm going to read you out some other interesting sections of the Constitution. Oath or affirmation of allegiance. So every senator and every member of the House of Representatives before taking his seat must make and subscribe before the Governor-General or some person authorised by him an oath or affirmation of allegiance in the form set out in the schedule of the Constitution. So the schedule of the Constitution, the oath is, I, Mr. do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Victoria, her heirs and successors, according to law, so help me God. So let me explain. So to Her Majesty Queen Victoria, her heirs and successors would be Queen Elizabeth II. Affirmation is the same. It is solemnly and sincerely affirming that they declare to be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Victoria, her heirs and successors. Interesting that that has been changed to the Queen of Australia. Very interesting. So, Section 44 of the Constitution, very interesting. Disqualification. Any person who is under any acknowledgement of allegiance or obedience or adherence to a foreign power. Sound familiar, people? Or is a subject or a citizen or entitled to the rights or privileges of a subject or citizen of a foreign power. That is 44.1. 44.2. Disqualification, any person who is attainted of treason or has been convicted and is under sentence or subject to be sentenced for any offence punishable under the law of the Commonwealth or of a state by imprisonment for 1 year or longer. I can't help but think of 90-year pedophile suppression orders that are in place. Part 5 of the Constitution. Under Section 51, we have the concurrent powers. This means that both the states and the Commonwealth can make laws on the same subject matter. But a law of the Commonwealth is superior to a law of the state, and if a law of the state is inconsistent to the law of the Commonwealth, the state law is invalid. I'll get to that. So at Section 51 of the Constitution, at Part 5, we have the legislative powers of the Parliament. The Parliament shall, subject to this Constitution, have the power to make laws for peace, order and good government. God, what's that? We don't have that, that's for sure. With respect to the following, and then it lists, I think it goes down to 5139, I think, from memory. But at 5123 we have the provision of maternity allowances, widows' pensions, child endowment, unemployment, pharmaceuticals, sickness, hospital benefits, medical and dental services, but not so as to authorise any form of civil conscription, benefits to students and family allowances. As case law has shown in Breen versus Williams and Wong versus Commonwealth, it is strictly prohibited to force or coerce anybody into a medical service. Medical services are a private contract in law between the patient and their medical practitioner, and no third party can intervene. This also means that any of your medical records, so for example your jab certificates, anything, it's private. Your employers, nobody has got the right to access that. And that is clearly outlined in Breen versus Williams and Wong versus Commonwealth, two High Court of Australia cases that have set precedents for us. Rings of steel to protect this private, consensual, voluntary agreement. It is private. I repeat, no government and no employer can force you into a medical service, it is strictly prohibited under the Constitution. Section 52, we have the exclusive powers of the Parliament. The Parliament, again, shall, subject to this Constitution, have exclusive power to make laws for the peace, order and good government of the Commonwealth with respect to, and it goes down at point 2, matters relating to any department of the public service, the control of which is by this Constitution transferred to the executive government of the Commonwealth. I think you will find that we've got a lot of public services in there that the states are trying to make laws on. They can't. It is an exclusive right of the Commonwealth, not the states. We have at 53, powers of the Houses in respect of legislation, section 53. Proposed laws appropriating revenue or monies or imposing taxation shall not originate in the Senate, but a proposed law shall not be taken to appropriate revenue or monies or to impose taxation by reason only of its containing provisions for the imposition or appropriation of fines or other pecuniary penalties, or for the demand or payment of appropriation of fees for licenses or fees for services under the proposed law. We've got a lot of skullduggery going on and has been for a long time. The Senate may not amend any proposed law so as to increase any proposed charge or burden on the people. We've got 58, section 58, royal assent to bills. Why have I got that in here? This is to do with the Governor-General. I'm not going to read the entirety of these sections. At the bottom of, at the end of section 58, the Governor-General may return to the House in which it originated any proposed law so presented to him, and may transmit therewith any amendments which he may recommend, and the Houses may deal with the recommendation. So, any proposed law is according to his discretion, but subject to the Constitution. Section 61 is executive power. The executive power of the Commonwealth is vested in the Queen and is exercisable by the Governor-General as the Queen's representative. And the Governor-General, one of your main roles is the execution and maintenance of this Constitution and the laws of the Commonwealth. What are you doing? David Hurley, I think your name is. You're about to get a whole lot of notices. We're going to create notices, and I want every Australian, I want your desk inundated with notices demanding this government step down. Sorry, people, I get very emotional about this. Section 66 is very interesting as well. Salaries of ministers. So, shall not exceed £12,000 a year. Now, what we need to do with this, you need to, of course, do the calculations to make it pertinent to now, 2021, but you also need to take into consideration the cost of living in comparison to that era and now. And I think you'll find that they're paying themselves 10 times the rate. At 69 of the Constitution, there was a transfer of certain departments. So, as I said, at Section 51, there were concurrent powers that both the state and the Commonwealth could make laws on the same subject matter. At Section 69, certain departments were transferred exclusively to the Commonwealth. Posts, telegraphs, telephones, naval and military defence, lighthouses, lightships, beacons, buoys and quarantine. 80, trial by jury. The trial on indictment of any offence against any law of the Commonwealth shall be by jury, and every such trial shall be held in the state where the offence was committed. And if the offence was not committed within any state, the trial shall be held at a place or places as the Parliament prescribes. So, all of you state premiers, you have committed definitely committed offences against the law of the Commonwealth and the Constitution, and it's time you were put on trial. Section 81 of the Constitution is the Consolidated Revenue Fund. So this is all revenues or monies raised or received by the executive government of the Commonwealth shall form one consolidated revenue fund to be appropriated for the purposes of the Commonwealth in the manner and subject to the charges and liabilities imposed by this Constitution. Where's all our money? Where's all our revenue? Where is everything? You got it all over in a Rockefeller Bank in America? People, we have got a lot to wake up to. This government has totally disregarded us. They are a corporation and have been acting as such for a long time. They have no regard for the people whatsoever. They are a corporation. They have no authority over us, and we need to get rid of them. Oh, another one. Okay, so 92, Section 92 is trade within the Commonwealth to be free on the imposition of uniform duties of customs, trade, commerce and intercourse among the states, whether by means of internal carriage or ocean navigation, shall be absolutely free. There is to be absolutely no tax applied to any travel or any trade in between our states. No tax is allowed. The imposition of uniform duties of trade shall be absolutely free. I think the government's been pocketing a bit there as well. 100. Section 100 of the Constitution, nor abridge the right to use water. The Commonwealth shall not, by any law or regulation of trade or commerce, abridge the right of a state or of the residents therein to the reasonable use of the waters of rivers for conservation or irrigation. Well, you criminals all have water rights, and you diverted 2 major rivers up in the Murray-Darling Basin. You then built 35 massive dams with taxpayers' dollars. And all of that water was not accessible to the Australian people because you sold it to foreign interest while our farmers committed suicide. You have destroyed this country and you continue to do so, and we have got to stop it. Section 106 is the saving of constitutions. The constitution of each state of the Commonwealth shall subject to this constitution. Any law, anything that the states do is subject to the constitution. Section 107, saving of power of state parliaments. Every power of the parliament of a colony which has become or is to become a state shall, unless it is by this constitution. Every one of these clauses specifies that it is subject to the Constitution or unless it is by the Constitution. This is the supreme law of this land, and there can be no misinterpretation of it by any of you QCs, barristers, lawyers, or people in Parliament like you, Malcolm Roberts. Section 109, inconsistency of laws. When a law of the state is inconsistent with a law of the Commonwealth, the latter shall prevail, and the former, to the extent of the inconsistency, be invalid. These health acts across Australia are inconsistent with the Biosecurity Act, which is a federal act, a law of the Commonwealth, hence they are invalid. Sections of the Biosecurity Act also are inconsistent with the Constitution, repugnant to it. So sections of the Federal Act, the Biosecurity Act, are also invalid. At Section 116, the Commonwealth is not to legislate in respect of a religion. The Commonwealth shall not make any law for establishing any religion or for imposing any religious observance or for prohibiting the free exercise of any religion. You have closed our churches. I am speechless at what has happening and is still occurring, and it's getting worse, people. It is getting worse by the day. Section 119 of the Constitution. Protection of the states from invasion and violence. The Commonwealth shall protect every state against invasion and on the application of the executive government of the state against domestic violence. We have domestic violence on the people. Section 120 is regarding the custody of offenders against the laws of the Commonwealth. Every state shall make provision for the detention in its prisons of persons accused or convicted of offences against the laws of the Commonwealth, and for the punishment of persons convicted of such offences, and the Parliament of the Commonwealth may make laws to give effect to this provision. We have a lot of persons who need to be charged, arrested, and tried. There are so many offences that have been committed against the law of the Commonwealth and our Constitution, and it's time we brought this country back in line. Chapter 8 is the alteration of the Constitution. At Section 128, the mode of altering the Constitution is, it's basically, you've got the proposed law for an alteration passed by a majority of each House of the Parliament. It then goes for the to the House of Representatives. It must then go to the people, and there's a referendum. So this Constitution cannot be altered without referendum of we the people. So we have got to stand strong, people. I think what we need to do is we need to send notice to the Governor-General and to every governor in every state, demanding that this government is overturned and thrown out. They have no regard for the supreme law of this land, and our Constitution and the good governance of this country could not be further from the truth. They have terrorised this nation, and millions of Australians are in utter despair. Families have been torn apart. They've denied families the right to see their loved ones, attend funerals, attend churches and other places of religious worship. Millions have lost their businesses and livelihoods, and the terror continues now with these criminals trying to mandate an experimental gene modification injection under the threat of loss of employment. Children can't go to school. We won't be able to move freely in our country. This can only be described as war crimes on the people, and these criminals in government need to be tried as such. We are being denied a hearing date for David's Section 40 regarding the Cottrell Romanis case. Courts are closed. Parliament is closed. Justice delayed is justice denied. And the Governor-General, we the people, are now going to demand you remove these criminals and execute and maintain the Constitution as is your role to do so. People, stand your ground. Take every fine to court. We will flood the courts. And all of these fines under unlawful and unconstitutional state acts, CHO directives, etc., can all be taken to the High Court as matters arising under the Constitution or its interpretation. We'll show you how to do it. You can do it pursuant to the Judiciary Act. We, the people, are the power, and we've got to take it back. Our public servants, that's the government. So they've gone rogue. They've gone well beyond the powers that we have given them. It's time to get this country back for the sake of our children and our future generations. And just to save everyone, I'm receiving so many emails. People across Australia are beside themselves with despair and distress. Stand your ground. I don't know what it's going to take. Everyone's going to have to lose their jobs. We're just going to march in the street, march across the soils of this land to the seat of government across every border, unhindered, to assert our claim at the seat of government, Parliament House in Canberra and the High Court, Governor-Generals. That is our right by law, and that is listed in case law, recently quoted in High Court of Australia 2020. We'll get some notices happening. I have also heard through the grapevine that across every state, 9 a.m, Tuesday morning, at the front of the governor's house in every state. So there is a governor's house in every state. At the front, 9 a.m, We need to make demands that this government is throwing out. Power to the people, and God bless. I'm sorry, people. I haven't got back to a lot of you. My mother's had a heart attack, and I've been very distracted. So God bless, and I'll continue to try and get notices out to everyone.